Hi, this is Mark from LongIslandWatch.com, and today I've got Watch and Learn number 60. It's the first one I'm filming in the new year, and we're going to cover a really cool topic that a lot of you have asked about. It is backhacking. What the heck is backhacking? Which a lot of you may know, but how does it work? I'll do my best to show you. And is it bad for your watch? And that's what I guess a lot of people really want to know. So we will head on over and check that out. My first wrist check for the new year, or I think that actually this might be my second wrist check. It's my first Watch and Learn wrist check. Sorry, is Squally-Matic polished blue still, and a new one. Folks at Spinnaker sent me a new watch to try out, so I'm trying it out. I actually don't even know what the reference is. It's really cool looking though. I like the bezel. It's sleek. It's all PVD. It looks really hot. Anyway, maybe that's a topic for another video. Let's head on over and let's see what backhacking is all about. So before we begin, I guess we need to first discuss what hacking is. I did this in the prior Watch and Learn. I showed you what a hacking lever is and how it works. Hacking simply means that when you pull out the crown to set the time, the second hand stops. This watch is dead right now, but if I give it a little wind and the second hand is moving, when I pull out the crown to set the time, see that the second hand does not stop moving. It's a design of many movements. Patek Philippe watches have this. Not all watches hack. It's not a bad thing. Right? It's just simply not in the design. What is backhacking? Backhacking is if you advance the time backwards just a little bit. It doesn't work on every watch. See that? The second hand can freeze. Let go. Let me get a little nudge. There it goes. It takes off again, a little back pressure, and the second hand will freeze, and it actually is going backwards. In this instance, it stopped. I can probably make it go backwards if I apply a little more pressure. It'll tick backwards. So that backhacking basically is the ability to stop the second hand by turning the time backwards. So this is a Seiko diver. It's got the 7S26 movement in it. I'm only using it here so I can show you. This is the exact same movement. This is a 7S26. It's been taken out of a watch. Let me take it out of the movement holder for a second. I know people comment on the gloves when I'm wearing a movement, when I'm touching movements and changing batteries and stuff. I do not use these if I'm working on watches. I never would. Yes, I know there's fibers. These are all garbage watches. I'm simply using the gloves just to take your eyes off my fingers and onto the task at hand. Look at that second. Look how bent it is. This is all garbage. So this is a 7S26, and what I've done is, if you look at the back of it, I've removed the auto winder. It's gone. I did that so I can get a look at some stuff. The balance wheel is there and stuff. All the wheels are there, and I've just applied the second hand. So the 7S26, you can't hand wind and you can't hack it. So to get it started, you usually have to auto wind it, or in this case, I just need to wind the mainspring to get it to run. So right now the watch is not running. So I will get it to run and then we'll start talking. Okay, so I just manually wound the watch by spinning the mainspring barrel. So the watch has a little bit of a wind to it. As you can see, like I said, I attached only the second hand just so we can see that it is running. There are a lot of parts missing from the front side to show you detail. I've taken off, obviously, the day and the date wheel. I have taken, well, the dial, first and foremost. I've taken off the day and the date wheel. I've taken off a lot of the day and date change mechanisms. They're all gone. I basically just left any components that are necessary to tell the time. So let's zoom in and start to talk a bit. Okay, so here we are zoomed in just a little bit, and you'll see that when I wind the crown, obviously nothing happens. When I pull the crown out 2 clicks, you can watch on the right side here, you'll see that the gear engages the time change mechanism, and if I back the watch up slightly, there goes the second hand backwards. If I just apply a little bit of back pressure, I can get it to stop, and there is your backhacking. So what the heck is going on, and why is that happening? Notice the watch stopped. There is not much wind to the watch, so if I actually just give it a little goose forward, it'll start ticking again. So what's going on? Well, to discuss and figure out what backhacking is, we need to just take a few minutes and discuss how the watch works. So we will flip it around and we'll start there. So I've got it flipped around. It stopped because the second hand is actually hitting this stand, which is fine. No problems there. So this is the balance wheel. It goes back and forth very fast, the tune of, what's this one, 21,600 beats per hour, whatever. I've covered this all in other videos. And as it goes back and forth, it drives a little lever back and forth, which engages and disengages an escape wheel, which, and I wanted to do stuff. I did a lot of things here to try to make it easier to see, but every time I took it apart, something else would go wrong. So you're going to have to just bear with it. There's a little escape wheel in here, and the teeth go in and out. And it drives the seconds hand, which is right here. This is the seconds wheel. I'm touching it. You'll see when the movement starts, this wheel will go. That in turn drives a third wheel, or the third wheel. And then it gets to the center wheel, which is the second wheel, which drives the minutes. And then that touches this mainspring barrel, which is unraveling. So really, the flow is like this. In the going train or the gear train. Never these levers here or these gears, this is for the auto winder. You can disregard them. We have a bunch of gears, 4 gears or 5 gears that go from here to here, and they just get progressively faster and faster. Slow, a lot of torque, fast, no torque. And that's how the watch runs. You'll notice that the mainspring is obviously the largest. There's a big spring inside, and it's driving the entire watch. Some people think it starts here and goes there. It's not. It starts here and goes there. So while all this is going on, let's see how it's going to start up. Let's flip it over. Give it a second to focus. There it goes. On this side here, oh, you know what? I actually want to show you something. It's not the seconds hand is ticking. Let's look at, oh man, I am not a steady person. This gear right here, that's the seconds hand. So if you watch it, that's about as much resolution as I can get. I actually practiced using a loop on the camera and stuff. It just got too cumbersome. But you can see that hand is moving, rotating like the seconds hand. So when we flip the movement over now, we're greeted with a few more gears. And these are the time change gears. And these are the gears that move the hands to change the time. So if you think about it from just a pure machinery point of view, I have a train of gears, a power source that drives the hands. I also have the necessity to change the time manually. So when you change the time manually, I'm not, well, to a degree, I'm not making the movement go super fast when I change the time forward. So what I'm doing right now is changing the time forwards, but I have no minute hand, no hour hand on there. But this wheel right in the middle, this big one, that is what the hour hand is attached to. And there's another one coming up in the middle that the minute hand's attached to. Everything's stacked. You see that little cone on top of the hour wheel arbor. So I'm advancing the time, but I'm not making the movement go faster. So you say if you're savvy, well, there's got to be a clutch or something somewhere, and there is, and that's where the whole back hacking thing comes into play. So now that we know the watch is running, I'm going to do away with the seconds hand, and we're going to start to just take a few things apart from here that we can check out. So the seconds hand is gone. The movement is still running. Yeah, I can see it. I'm going to start by taking off the hour wheel arbor. Just a simple slip fit, fits right on there, driven by this wheel here. And that's what turns the hour hand when we change the time and when the movement's running. And I'm going to take off this wheel here. This is the one, I am very shaky. I've had just coffee and nothing else. This is the one that drives the minute hand when we go to set the time, and drives the hour hand. So what do we have here now? Now, if we look at the very tippy top, not the gloves, not the gloves camera. I want you to look over here. Whoops, right at here. There's a little tip sticking out, and that is the seconds hand. Around it is this cannon pinion, and this is where all the magic happens. This thing here, I'm going to pull the cannon pinion off. Ready? See how it took me a lot of effort to pull it off? And this is what it looks like. It's just a little gear with a sleeve on it. Now this is crimped, and it's a friction fit. I'm just going to drop it over here. It's a friction fit over this right here. So what I'm touching with the tweezers, that's driven by, I guess, the second wheel, or the center wheel, second wheel, center wheel, and that is the minute hand. This here is the seconds hand. Yes, it's coming through the minute hand. Whoever thought of this stuff hundreds of years ago, or 100, 200 years ago, the center seconds, it really is ingenious how it all works. I love it. But anyway, this right here is connected to the minute hand, and this is the seconds hand. That cannon pinion sat on this minute hand arbor with this little thing sticking out, and it sat there with friction. As you saw, it did not just fall off. I had to actually yank it off. It's crimped a little bit. If I go to put it back on, you would see it snaps into place. So what happens is that is your clutch. So when you advance the time or retard the time, you are spinning that cannon pinion. And if there is enough friction to overcome if there's enough force, excuse me, to overcome the friction between the cannon pinion and this arbor coming up, then guess what? You change the time. If there's not, you actually are going to force the movement to move. If you're going to go forward, you're going to force it to move a little bit faster, although that usually doesn't happen, but it can. But more commonly, I'm trying to get it to focus, I'm sorry. More commonly, you are going to get it to go backwards, and what you're going to do, so the cannon pinion's trying to turn, it's not enough friction to overcome it's not enough force to overcome the friction between the cannon pinion and the second wheel. You're going to actually turn the second wheel, which in turn will turn the third wheel, the fourth wheel, and everything will go backwards. Theoretically, I guess the mainspring is going backwards, but it's such a slow mover that we would never realize it. You are making the movement first stop and then go backwards. So how are you making it stop? Well, you're applying enough friction to this piece here to get the minute hand and then subsequently the second hand and then subsequently the balance right there, underneath there, to stop oscillating. And then further force backwards if there's enough force and enough friction, you will get the whole thing to go backwards. So I told you what backhacking is, and now I've explained to you exactly how it works. And just for, I guess a little edification, I'm going to actually now just replace all the gears I took off so you can kind of see how they go. And again, I want to just exemplify. I want to say it again. I can't say it enough. This here, this fat cylinder here, this is part of the second wheel. It is turning, once an hour. It is the minute hand. There's a little post coming through. Right here, this is attached to the fourth wheel or the seconds hand. It's turning once a minute. So I'm going to take, or attempt to, because guys, like I said, not at all good with the watchmaking. Not at all. I think I've said this before. I took one of the time zone classes and I was horrible at it. I can take watches apart. I can't always put them back together. The cannon pinion is going to go over the center wheel. It drops over the wheel and then, ready? I got to push it down and make it snap. It snaps on. That's the friction. So this is now what the minute hand lays on. The minute hand actually goes on the cannon pinion. I don't have a minute hand here. I'm not going to do it. But that is what the minute hand goes on. So when you change the time, you're turning the cannon pinion. And hopefully there's enough force that it overcomes the movement and it turns the hand and not the movement. This is your clutch. It's actually the most important part of the movement. Well, everything's important, right? I mean, if you lost a jewel, the movement won't work. But this is the decoupling mechanism that decouples the time change train from the going train. And that's what's so important. And so next we're going to throw on the minute hand adjuster. There we go. And then, so you can see now when I go to change the time, my hands are really shaky. You are turning this, and this is in turn turning the cannon pinion. You see it? If you don't see it, I'm going to make you see it. Okay, ready? You see how it's turning the cannon pinion? And if you watch the balance right here, I could attach a second hand, I guess you would see that too. But if you watch the balance, I can get the balance to stop as I turn it backwards. It's slowing down. See the frequency you're seeing is slowing down? Actually, now I think it's going backwards. It's tough to see, but as you turn it backwards, you're actually slowing the movement. There it goes. I just stopped it. Okay, and I start it up again. There it goes. So you are physically turning the movement, and then the final piece is the hour wheel arbor, which sits there, and that's how the whole thing changes the time. And that's what backhacking is, and that's how it works. Now, on to the last question. Let me zoom out a bit, and we're almost done. Thank goodness, because this is a tough one on my shakiness. Is it bad for the movement? So, again, I guess I should qualify my statements. I'm not a watchmaker. I'm just a guy that can, knows a lot about watches. If you're just using it to backhack, I think it's fine, 100%. You turn it backwards till it stops. What are you doing? Nothing really. You're engaging the friction between the canyon pinion and the second wheel, and you're getting the watch to stop. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. Do it to your heart's content. What about turning the watch backwards? That I do feel should not be done. If you start turning it backwards, I think you shouldn't do it as like a party trick and show people you can reverse time like Superman. I think you should, if you see it going backwards, take off the pressure and let the watch go forwards again. Because what are you doing? Well, if you think about it, the balance wheel doesn't care. It's going back and forth at the same frequency pretty much, even going forwards or backwards. There is no forwards or backwards because it's oscillating like this. What you are changing is the faces of the stones hit the escape wheel, and that's a difference. There's surfaces that are being worn that were never meant to be worn. So I would kind of stay away from that. Can you backhack every watch, or why can't I backhack my Seiko? Might be a question you may ask, and maybe I should have opened with that. If there's a lot of torque in the mainspring, like it's fully wound, you may not be able to apply enough back pressure to stop the movement because there's so much torque going through the second wheel that it keeps overcoming whatever you're doing to the canyon pinion. So it may not stop. So when can you easily backhack a watch like this? When it's dead, obviously, and just being wound up with a little bit of spring energy. That's actually probably the best time to do it. And that's probably the time most of us would do it. The watch has, been sitting for a couple of days, and you decide to put it on, and you're crazy, and you just demand more out of your $200 Seiko than someone does out of a $15,000 Patek, and you need to align your seconds hand, dead on the nose. So that would be a good time to do it. You pick it up, you give it a little shake, and then you set the time. You hold it back. Don't go backwards. Hold the time back. Let the seconds hands come, and then advance time forwards, and the seconds hand will take off again. If it's fully wound, you may not be able to do it. And I will say, if it's fully wound and you are able to do it, that's when I feel that you could, over the long term, do some kind of, not damage, but the interface between the cannon pinion and the center wheel is meant to run, but it's not meant to be forced. So if you keep rubbing those two materials, those two interfaces together, maybe eventually the cannon pinion will just become loose, and the watch will then, exhibit a host of other problems. I think that's about it. I would say covered backhacking, what it is, how it works, is it good or is it bad? I think I'm done. So this has been Mark from LongIslandWatch.com with Watch and Learn number 60. Showing you all about backhacking. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below, and I will be sure to address them as soon as I can. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.